I wrote my first book when I was 18. A publisher in China picked it up, and somehow it became a hit. The sudden fame was quite overwhelming, as were the book royalties that I was getting paid. And then at a book signing, I was just sitting at a desk, scribbling my name on book after book, thanking everyone who had kindly waited in line. And a guy came up. He was wearing those orange socks so bright that they could blind you. And he very cheerfully took out a book for me to sign. Except it wasn't my book. It had the same title, same author, me, but a cover that I had never, ever seen before in my life. What do I do? Do I sign it? What do I do with this? I hesitated, but the very insecure 18-year-old was just too shy, too polite, and probably too scared to say anything. So I quickly signed it. And the guy said, "Oh, can we take a photo with your book?" So we all stood there, smiled for the cameras. Me, this guy in his bright orange socks, and the fake book. I called my agent immediately after the event, and my agent called the book publisher, and the publisher called the distributors. Finally, they came back to me. He said, "Well, Debs, your book has been pirated, but good news, there's about 1 million copies of it in circulation." Before I could process that number, my publisher said, "Oh, Debs, we're really sorry, but we can't pay you for all those pirated copies out there." My agent tried to cheer me up, and he said, "Debs, take it as a compliment. You've gone platinum in the black market." Well, what do we do? In reality, there wasn't much that we could do about it. So that was the first time I was a victim of piracy, of copyright infringement. And then it happened again with my second book. So eventually, I decided enough was enough, and I turned the tables. This is what happened. When Netflix came online, I finally had my chance. I was probably one of the first people to sign up to Netflix. I was very much a paying customer, but I shared my account. I shared my account with my immediate family. I shared it with my extended family. I shared it with my best friends. I shared it with my pretty good friends. The list went on, and my mom even shared my account with her yoga instructor. So everyone, absolutely everyone knew my password, and everyone knew the name of the guy I had a crush on at the time, because that was the password. So everyone was logging with the name of my crush and happily watching Netflix. I only had one issue, the algorithm. By this point, Netflix was so utterly confused about what to recommend. One day it would suggest Peppa Pig. The second day, some documentary about life after pornography. I was probably being profiled as a toddler with deep emotional trauma. But I didn't really mind. After all, half of West London was watching Netflix on one account. My account. Netflix was Goliath and I was David. So you see, by this point, I had been on both sides of copyright infringement. They stole my books, but I stole the films. And I thought that I had a pretty good understanding of intellectual property. But all of this was before AI. And then AI happened, and everything changed. Large language models they started writing, making music, drawing, and painting, and what they produced was astonishingly good. Every writer, musician, artist, journalist that I can call a friend now uses it as a collaborator, yours truly included. AI is obviously trained on data. Whose data? Everyone's data. AI is trained on the collective works of humanity. And the tech bros should be paying for that, absolutely. But I want to leave the debate about inputs for today. Let's focus on the outputs. The outputs from AI tells us an important truth, and that is creativity has never really existed in isolation. It has always been about borrowing, remixing, and adapting. And this really matters because creativity, or intellectual property as we understand it, is the effort of an individual that deserves exclusive rights. It's why I got paid for the books I wrote, well, before they were pirated. And it's why the musicians on Spotify get paid for the books for the music they make. But if AI can be just as creative, or potentially more creative, it makes us think, what does it mean to have the ownership of an idea? What is copyright? Does it belong to the algorithm itself? Does it belong to the people that built the algorithm? Does it belong to the person who inspired the idea? Or something else? Let's start with the algorithm. Does anyone remember the monkey selfie? Some of you do, some of you don't. In case you don't, a monkey grabbed a camera from a photographer, pressed the shutter, and took a selfie. It was a great selfie. So the question is, does the monkey own that piece of art? Legal disputes went on for a very long time, and eventually the court ruled that non-human entities could not hold copyright. So what applied to the monkey applies to AI. AI cannot own the work it produces simply because it's not human. What about the people that built the algorithm? Well, that would be the tech companies. Nah. Okay, so what about the person that inspired the idea? Let me ask a question, if I may. With great power comes great responsibility. Who said that? Spider-Man. Technically it was Spider-Man's Uncle Ben. But was Spider-Man the first person to come up with those words? I had a French teacher who was obsessed with Voltaire, and he pointed out that it wasn't Spider-Man, it was actually Voltaire. So in a way, Spider-Man plagiarized Voltaire's words. Does Voltaire care? He probably would have, but he's not here with us today. Do we care? I'm not sure that we really do, because Voltaire is Voltaire. We're not too worried about a specific sentence that he wrote. It takes absolutely nothing away from the creativity and the ideas that represent him as a mind, as a person. So it wasn't Spider-Man. My French teacher said it was Voltaire. I checked. The internet also agrees with him. But this is TEDx. So I double-checked. I asked the historian. And the historian immediately said, it's in the Bible. So we went from the Bible to Spider-Man via Voltaire and probably others in between. And that is precisely my point. There isn't really a truly original idea with creativity. There's always a chain of influence and evolution. So I don't know. When AI can replicate that creativity, or when we collaborate with AI, who owns the idea? Does anyone own the idea, or are we all borrowing from a collective pool of human creativity? Let's talk about money for a minute. The potential end of creative ownership doesn't have to mean the end of value. Creativity has immense value, and just because we might be shifting to a collective model doesn't mean that artists won't get rewarded. If we look back in history, we talked about Voltaire, patronage was a way many artists were rewarded, and people like Catherine the Great gave financial backing to philosophers like Voltaire. And today, we have digital platforms, we have content creators, YouTubers, TikTokers, podcasters, and you will notice that they often have a link next to their work, and it says, "Buy me a coffee." Click on that link and you can send a coffee to your favorite artist. And depending on how much you like them, it could be a McDonald's filter coffee, it could be a Starbucks flat white, it could be a Ethiopian single origin V60, or it could even be my dream, a dirty chai latte with an extra shot, full-fat milk, and then just a tiny bit of cinnamon. But let's get back to the link. So that link says, "Buy me a coffee." It's buy me a coffee, not buy my book, buy my music, or buy my film. It's buy me a coffee so that I could be free from the financial burden of coffee purchase. It's buy me a coffee so I could spend that time creating, so that I could contribute to the collective pool of creativity. And our modern patronage system also includes Patreon, LibrePay, Ko-fi, Drip, Tippy, and let's not forget OnlyFans. If we were to look at some numbers, there are currently about 300,000 creators on Patreon, over 1 million on Buy Me a Coffee, and over 4 million on OnlyFans. And the 300,000 creators on Patreon have made over $8 billion to date. And the guys on OnlyFans have received over 20 billion. That's not nothing. It's not enough. It's never enough, but it's not nothing. And it proves one thing, and that is we now have an audience that values the artist, not just the product. Let me end with a confession. A very good friend of mine, very honestly, he's one of the greatest writers of our time. He's working on a new novel, but with about 40% of AI work. He loves the new book. AI isn't just writing beautiful prose with impeccable grammar. AI is actually contributing ideas. He loves the new book, but he's conflicted. He is questioning the value of his creativity as an author. He doesn't want to claim copyright. He doesn't think that he should. He and I agree on this, that the old model of creative ownership is dissolving, but from there we diverge. He's afraid, he's even terrified that the individual creativity of each human will pale in comparison to that of the AI, and in the very near future, human creativity would become obsolete, and that's very much his idea of apocalypse. That would be his worst nightmare. I feel a little differently. I also love his new book. On the first 2 chapters that he's given me to read. But what struck me wasn't that AI made it good. It was that AI made him better. AI made this brilliant writer even better. AI stretched him, challenged him, unlocked something that he didn't even know he had. And what's wrong with that? It doesn't just apply to him. It applies to everyone who there were barriers that kept people from expressing themselves, lack of training, skills, resources, or even time, and they're disappearing. The future isn't a loss of creativity, it's a world where everyone gets to participate. I believe that creative ownership, as we know it today, is coming to an end. and my future books won't be copyrighted. But I hope that we move towards the utopia that I dream of, rather than the dystopia that he's afraid of. And my utopia is a world where human imagination is measured not by what we claim as mine, but by what we create together. If you've enjoyed this talk, it's a dirty chai latte with an extra shot, full fat milk, and a tiny bit of cinnamon. Thank you.